Mount Olympus Water and Theme Park is one of the biggest draws in the tourist town known as the Wisconsin Dells. The Dells is widely considered to be the water park capital of the world, but roller coasters are much more scarce here. But there does happen to be one park which blends water slides and roller coasters, and I had the chance to experience it on June 8th, 2023. Mount Olympus is a very quirky place, as with many other tourist attractions in this city, but it does have some out-of-this-world rides. Today I'll be ranking all 5 of this park's roller coasters, but to keep this video from being a ridiculously short one, I do want to talk about some of the water park attractions as well. Personally, I don't love water parks the same way I love theme parks, but if I see something particularly unique or exciting, I will try to make time for it. In this case, there were 2 water park attractions that I just thought were too cool to pass up. First was the Medusa Slide Wheel, a first-of-its-kind water slide in North America. Manufactured by Whitewater West, this incredibly bizarre slide rotates like a Ferris wheel, which causes riders to rock back and forth as if you were experiencing a half-pipe element over and over and over again. This was one of the most bizarre experiences I've had on any amusement ride because it totally messes with your brain. It's not the most thrilling water slide, so anyone can do it, but it's certainly pretty cool with a lot of the general public seeming to really enjoy it. The other attraction in the water park that I thought was impressive was the wave pool called Poseidon's Rage. Now, this isn't just any ordinary wave pool. Unlike most which have a continuous cycle of waves for several minutes at a time, this one just has a single wave which is launched every 90 seconds. Poseidon's Rage is advertised as one of the world's most intense wave pools because these things reach up to 9 feet tall, and the force at which it hits you with is insane. I've truly never experienced anything like it, and it's a must-do attraction when you come to Mount Olympus. In addition to these 2, the park will be constructing a slide complex next season that I just can't believe is happening. The Rise of Icarus will open as America's tallest water slide at 145 feet tall. If you've seen Daredevil's Peak at Coco Cay in the Bahamas, the current record holder for tallest water slide in North America, this will be a very similar experience. I think it's weird that Mount Olympus is only advertising Icarus as the tallest slide in America because it will be 10 feet taller than Daredevil's Peak. Nonetheless, this will be an amazing reason to come back to Mount Olympus in addition to its fantastic roller coaster collection. Speaking of which, Mount Olympus easily has one of the most unique coaster lineups I've ever seen. I mentioned that they only have 5, which isn't a lot, but 4 of these are built from wood, and the other is just a kiddie coaster, so it makes sense that that would be from steel. I just think it's so cool when you come across a theme park that takes pride in its wooden roller coasters because modern steel coasters just cannot mimic the sensations you get on one of these things. That said, since the park does already have 4, I would like to see them invest in a major steel coaster next, maybe something like a Gerstlauer Eurofighter or an RMC Raptor coaster. But anyways, let's rank the park's coasters from worst to best. Starting things off at number 5 is Little Titans, opened in 2000. This is the aforementioned kiddie coaster built from steel that unfortunately adults are not allowed to ride without a child. I personally don't understand this rule because I've ridden an exact replica of this ride at more established amusement parks. But regardless, I do think every park should have at least 1 or 2 coasters for small children. Though I didn't get to experience Little Titans, nor would I have enjoyed it all that much since it's not meant for my target audience, I do acknowledge that it's a good fit in the park's lineup. Some of you might be asking, why am I even ranking a roller coaster that I haven't ridden? And for the most part, I'm with you guys. I typically don't think it's my place to state how good or bad a ride is unless I've ridden it, but in this case, look at this thing. It's a coaster for children. It's not going to be better than any of the 4 wooden coasters here. Number 4, Pegasus, opened in 1996. Like most of the park's roller coasters, Pegasus was manufactured by the now defunct Custom Coasters International. It's by far the smallest wooden coaster here, but it's not an inherently bad ride. I know many coaster enthusiasts would beg to differ though. Pegasus has had an abysmal reputation for being a rough ride, but I rode this thing once in the front expecting it to suck, and I was surprised by how decent it was. I even ended up riding it again in the same row. Now, it's no secret that Pegasus has some bizarre track profiling and a lot of strange unbanked turns. But again, I didn't find this uncomfortable in the front. If anything, I got some lateral forces at points. If I were in the back row, well, this could be a different story. I could imagine it being uncomfortable if you were whipped around these things. The most notorious element on this ride is this turn into the brake run, which looks like it was some sort of design flaw. I've seen videos of people smashing their heads into one another, so I was kind of expecting the worst here. Like I keep saying, had I been in the back, this could have been bad, but in the front, it didn't really feel like much at all. So overall, Pegasus may not be the most exciting wooden coaster, but I also didn't find it to be all that rough in the front row. Number 3, Cyclops, opened in 1995. A big jump up from Pegasus, we now enter the park's top 3, which are a trio of wooden roller coasters that are all intertwined with one another. It's actually hard to tell which ride is which sometimes, and that's a pretty cool visual. Right off the bat, I do want to mention that Cyclops is absolutely a back row ride. This coaster is characterized by this pretty crazy drop that launches you out of your seat if you're in the back. A fun fact about Cyclops is the ride's train used to be longer, but because of how violent the airtime was here, they had to remove the back car. An even weirder fun fact, back when they had this extra back car, only riders 18 and up could experience it. Even as is, the drop probably gives the single best airtime moment in the park, and it's awesome. I also thought it was cool that Cyclops' largest drop takes place at the end of the ride rather than the beginning like most roller coasters. That's because because this ride follows the terrain, and it does so for the entire layout. Now, I do also want to shout out one other airtime moment on Cyclops that I thought was great. The first drop may not be very tall, but it really throws you in the back row, and because it also turns to the left, it provides some noticeable laterals as well. Other than these two drops, Cyclops would be a pretty average and pretty short wooden roller coaster, but those moments really make it worth riding, which is why Cyclops is number 3 on this list. Number 2, Zeus, opened in 1997. This is an excellent wooden roller coaster that would be most parks' best wood coaster if it weren't at Mount Olympus. Like Cyclops, this thing does a fantastic job following the terrain, causing the ride to build speed when you might not be expecting it. It also means some of these hills provide more sustained airtime than you would think, not just because of their shaping, but because of how they fall down the hillside a bit. My favorite part of the ride is this double down, which is just incredible and super powerful. Zeus also mixes in some good laterals on the far turnaround section, which adds some variety to the layout. Something else that surprised me about Zeus was how smooth this thing was. It was by far the smoothest coaster in the park, and I hope Mount Olympus continues to maintain it the way they have been. The biggest downside with the Zeus is it's not a very long ride at just 2,900 feet long. It's actually not that short in track length, but because the coaster's pacing is so good, the ride duration doesn't last so long. But I'd still take that far over Timber Terror at Silverwood in Idaho. That's another CCI wooden roller coaster that features a very similar layout to Zeus, only Timber Terror is built on a flat section of land and doesn't run nearly as fast as this thing does. Zeus is a powerhouse from start to finish, and I was really impressed by how well it complemented the number 1 coaster in the park, Hades 360. Opened in 2005, reimagined in 2013. The park's largest coaster by far, Hades 360 is an absolute beast. It stands 136 feet tall, but because it stands on a hill, sits at an elevation of 160 feet. It's also got a drop greater than its height because it dives into an underground tunnel. And right off the bat, I've got to mention this ride's tunnels because it's really its defining feature. Hades 360 features the longest tunnel on any roller coaster in the world, all taking place beneath Mount Olympus's parking lot. It then pops you out on the other side, goes through a few elements, and repeats the tunnel sequence, but with slightly different elements with slightly different banking and whatnot. The first tunnel section is one of the most intense sequences of elements on any coaster I've ridden because you are flying at 60 miles per hour and you cannot tell what's about to happen next. Another thing Hades 360 is well known for is being one of the only wooden roller coasters in the country and the world that flips riders upside down. Originally, when the ride opened and it was just called Hades, this was simply one large airtime hill, but in 2013 the gravity group came in and replaced the hill with a corkscrew and a 110-degree overbank turn, among other things. This only adds to the coaster's world-class pacing, which causes it to be one of the most intense wooden coasters on Earth. But unfortunately, because of how intense it is and because of how much stress is placed on the track, Hades 360 is also an incredibly rough ride. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I'm not one to complain about roughness, and sometimes I even consider it a bonus if it adds to the ride's intensity. But man, the roughness and few moments of jackhammering on Hades 360 is just too much. I still rank this coaster as my 37th favorite out of 780 coasters I've ever ridden. It's an absolutely amazing ride in so many ways, but I think if it were smoother and were retracked with something like Gravity Group's pre-cut track, we'd be looking at a perfect 10 out of 10 wooden roller coaster. Until then, I can't deny that there's a glaring flaw with this ride that makes it so hard to ride over and over again. Hopefully in the future I'll get the chance to revisit this park and can look forward to a smooth Hades 360 because I really do love this ride. It's the best roller coaster in the state of Wisconsin and one of the craziest you'll find in America. But with that being said, I'd now like to ask you guys, what do you think of Mount Olympus and their roller coasters if you've had the chance to visit before? If you enjoyed today's video, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like and subscribe to Coaster Dash for more content like this in the future. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.